Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to show you how I made this shell planter using Papercrete, which is a lightweight cement mixture made of 3 ingredients. You will need some sort of cup for measuring, and I'm going to be using this one. The first ingredient is paper pulp, and I do recommend wearing gloves for this process. So you'll add in 3 parts paper pulp, 2 parts of Portland cement, and I'm actually using white Portland cement because I wanted my shell to be white, but you could also use regular standard gray Portland cement, and if you wanted it to be white, you could paint it. And then this last ingredient is going to be 1 part perlite, and I would just put my hand over it so the wind didn't blow it away because it is very lightweight. And once you have all your ingredients in the bowl, you'll go ahead and combine them. I will usually start out with a spoon, and then I'll get in with my hands and make sure it's mixed very thoroughly. And just for reference, this is the consistency that I like my Papercrete to be. And this is the mold I'm going to be using. It is actually a shell punch bowl that I ordered online. And if you are interested in purchasing one, I will have a link for you down below. So the next step is going to be preparing our mold for the Papercrete. And I like to use canola oil in a spray can, and that's just to make sure it pops out of the mold very easily. So now it's time to put the Papercrete in the mold, and I like to use what I call the hamburger patty method. And what I do is I grab a handful of the Papercrete and form it into a patty shape and compress it in my hands and then press it into the mold. And for me, this makes sure that I'm pressing the Papercrete together really well and there's less chance of air bubbles in it. And it also just makes it easy. Instead of just throwing globs on there, you're able to get more of a consistent thickness throughout the entire piece. So I made sure, since this piece does have little feet indentions, I made sure to press the Papercrete into those really well because I wanted those to come out of the mold intact so that it would sit properly on the ground or wherever I decided to place this. So once I did that, I just went around the entire mold and I did the same hamburger method and filled the entire thing. Just a little quick tip, using water will help to really smooth out the surface of the Papercrete. So I will have a container of water handy and I'll dip my fingers in that and just pat that on the surface of the Papercrete to really smooth it out. I also wanted to point out how I get a nice finish on the edges. So I'll use one hand to push up and the other hand to push down to make that angle and really get a consistent edge along the entire rim. So this is what it looked like when I was done putting the Papercrete into the mold. As you can see, I have a pretty consistent rim all the way around the edge, and I have nice definition in the shell, kind of those hills and valleys. And if you were kind of wondering how thick I like to make my papercrete, for a typical planter, I usually make it about a 1/2 inch thick. So I put that in a plastic bag for a couple days. I took it out of the bag and left it just like this in its mold until it completely dried out. And now it's time to release it from the mold. And what I like to do is press the edges away from the papercrete to release it and then flip it upside down, and it usually comes out really easily, just like this one did. Now, as you can see, the edges aren't really crisp. So what I like to do is go in with some sandpaper, lightly sand the edges, and that fixes the problem. So this is what it looked like, and here's a little close-up of the edges once I did that. And here's a look at what the underside looks like. I definitely think this mold worked out really nicely, and I was surprised with the quality of the mold or punch bowl. It's actually thicker than I thought it would be, so I can see myself using this mold over and over again. The final step is to drill some holes for drainage. So if you're going to be using this as a planter, you definitely want to make sure you have drainage. You can do this while your papercrete is wet. You can just use a stick or something like that to make holes in the papercrete, and then it will dry that way. But I usually go in with a drill at the end because I can make really clean, consistent holes. So I just drilled 3 holes in the bottom of that for drainage. So for now, I placed it by my pond. I am planning to fill it with succulents here pretty soon. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.